for all of us to engage with some learning around a component of research. So Dr. Clark, actually, most of the people who are on the call who are faculty members have done one of our lunch and learns, and they've been great. I see Jennifer's with us. Kathleen has done these sessions. Myself, we've had some of the grad students who are on the call also do sessions. They've been fantastic. Julie, I see that you're recording already, which is great. And we will post the recording. I kind of keep a collection of YouTube videos of these lunch and learns for people who miss a session. You want to learn about literature reviews. We've got a couple of great topics on literature reviews or managing your literature reviews. So if you are interested in those, I can certainly make those available to you. So today we're going to have Julie Mueller. Dr. Mueller is a professor in the Faculty of Education, the longest standing or sitting or lying down professor in the Faculty of Education. Julie was one of the inaugural members of the Faculty of Education. I want to say 2007. I might be wrong about that date. Okay, you're shaking your head. That indicates yes, I'm correct. And Julie has also been an incredibly active researcher. Julie, I think you would say by your own admission, not as much this past year because of carrying a lot of last 2 years, a lot of administrative duties. Julie has been the Associate Dean in the Faculty of Education. She's going on a very well-deserved sabbatical as of July the 1st. And I'm sure that her research, which has been funded by a number of different government and university funds, will become very active once again. So Julie, I think I'm going to pass it over to you and let you take it from here. And just to start, you're going to remind yourself yeah, there we go.
I will start. And are you seeing my slide?
Yes.
Terrific. Wonderful. It's good to see all of you as much as I can. Certainly this type of more informal gathering benefits from the opportunity to sit around an actual lunch while we learn. And I'm guessing that some of you may be enjoying your lunch with your camera off, and that is perfectly fine. We may break out into some smaller rooms if we have time, and you'll be able to interact a little more. So let me know if you're not able to do that, but let's just get started. So I have been to, I think, one or maybe two of the lunch and learns. Others didn't quite fit the schedule, but I'm very pleased to be able to be the speaker at this one. But I also want you to realize that this is interactive, and please ask questions and just unmute. I'm not going to watch for hands up, so unmute and interrupt, and I'll stop talking. So and Steve mentioned, what would you like to talk about? I think that as he mentioned, the last couple of years, my research has been on a little bit of a hiatus, and Kristen, who has joined us today, may be able to tell you more about that, but it's difficult to fit it in amongst an administrative role and a pandemic. So some of what I'll be talking about is not completely recent, but other parts of it will refer to, of course, the big C. Can't do much these days without talking about COVID at some point. So I decided that really what sort of maybe makes my lab not necessarily unique, but my strength, what I bring to it, is really creating a community. So I'm going to talk about that today in terms of what we might do, unless it doesn't let me. Okay. All right. There we go. So just really 4 parts to this. Really, the introduction, I'm going to talk about relationships, the time and space, and that looks a little bit different during our pandemic, roles and responsibilities, and then keeping records. So how does this all come about? So relationships, I don't know if everybody on the call is familiar with the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, a US college game that came out in 2000s. really looking at how famous people, actors and actresses, might be connected to Kevin Bacon. So the theory of 6 degrees of separation was taken into Hollywood and really as part of a game with a bunch of college students. But really what the essence of that theory is that we are all very closely connected despite the millions and billions of people in the world. That really, there's a point in 2011, researchers at Cornell computed the average separation of Facebook users to be 3.74, so even less than 6 degrees. And at the time, there were 721 million users. By 2016, so just 5 years ago, there were 1.5 billion users, and the number had dropped even further to 3.57. And this data is coming from Hacker Earth, so you can check that out if you'd like. But really what we're doing is saying, well, you know, how are people connected? There's a lot of similarities. If we could take that billions of people and have them have some sort of connection. And that's what I see happening in research, in the research community wider, and then bringing it closer to your lab. So if you think of the research lab that you want to create, if you are directing it, I see Danielle had joined us. So if you are sort of the lead in that research lab, you want to look for and create these relationships. If you are part of that lab, you want to maybe look at relationships for a different purpose and at a different level in all kinds of different ways. So Dr. Willard Holt, in her session last week, talked very much about relationships in terms of mentors, who you choose to work with, people that you research with. And right now, even though we are physically apart, there are still lots of ways to connect. So the research lab's no different. So where do all these people and the folks in your research lab come from? So we right away think, well, it's RAs. As Steve mentioned, a lot of you are research assistants paid through a research grant. And that's sort of the common way to create a research lab. But in my lab, in the last, how many years have I been here? 12, 14, 17, 2007, yeah, 14 years. The people in my lab have come from a number of places. So these are just a few. So Navigator is our job posting board at Laurier. So often for my tax grants, internship opportunities, I've used that, right? So it's folks across the university looking for employment and research opportunities. My tax interns, we had just within our faculty had a session not too long ago looking at how you can use the MyTax program to support your research. And I would highly recommend it as students, graduate students, that's a place you want to investigate. And maybe we could talk about that another Friday. Rita Sharkey, those of you who are connected to the psychology lab, and again, those very close 2 degrees of separation. I did my PhD at Laurier in the psychology lab, and now I work with a lot of the faculty there, and I have students doing their comprehensive work with me, and that's how they enter my lab. I've hired psych students as research assistants. And a lot of times I just send an email to Rita, relationships, and she sends that out, makes that connection. Work study students. So Laurier has a program for undergraduate students who work as work study students. Undergrad and graduate thesis. Our MEd program did have a thesis option in the beginning. So I had a couple grad thesis students, but also undergraduate thesis. Even if they aren't your students, you can co-supervise and welcome them into your lab to help do some of the research that you're doing that they are also interested in. Committees, right? Sitting on as externals, you get to know students and researchers in your area of expertise. So that's another pool of possibilities. Crossing faculties, crossing institutions. I hired a young man from Conestoga College to work on some of my computational thinking work. He's a computer scientist. Okay? Conferences. CSSE is happening Sunday. I don't know how many of you might be taking part in that, but when I go to those conferences, ensuring that you attend and review some of the grad student events. So there's always a poster session and review those. And I have had students apply as faculty once they have graduated based on the relationship we established or initiated during a poster session. Right? Co-op students, I've had high school co-op students, class assignments, people who are doing research as part of a course, presentations that you've done, visiting scholars, joining your lab, industry partners, education partners, have done research with teachers, and making them feel a part of your research lab in a number of ways takes it a step further than just being participants or even just co-researchers, right? Service committees. My husband, I know, thought I was crazy when I signed up to be on the executive with the Canadian Association for Teacher Education. They say, it's 2 years as vice president. You'll love it. You'll get to know people. Well, then they tell you, but don't really push the fact that, yes, after the 2 years, you just become president. And then after 2 more years, you become past president. So it's really a 6-year commitment. It was an amazing experience, and you got to know researchers across the country, even if it's just names, but on a bigger level as well. Campus events, social media, right? I encourage you to make sure you are making those connections, and there's another degree of closeness, right? If you can create a network through social media, which is really important now when we aren't being together. All right, so this is where I thought we might take a few minutes. It's just 1:15, and we're going to take 5 minutes. So we're going to make 5 rooms and just let you go into a room and see how you are all connected. One close connection, obviously, is Dr. Sider, because he put out this call. So I want you to see, how are you connected to me, just as a starting point, right? Well, Dr. Sider, are there other connections that brought you to this point? So I'll let you just take a few minutes to talk about your connections before we move on to time and space. All right, so let's see. I'm gonna get back to my screen. I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment. And I see many of you do not have your camera on. If you are able to join into our small group, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create them manually so that I can put faculty in different groups. So hi, Carolyn. I'm going to put you in 1. I'm going to put Danielle in 2. I'm going to put Jennifer in 3. I'm going to put, oh, did we lose Danielle?
I'm here.
Oh, you are. I've just put you.
I think I'm here.
Yeah.
You're definitely here, Danielle. Danielle is in the house.
Yeah.
I'll be in 4 and I'll head to 5.
You also have Kathy here.
Is it?
But I just joined and I have no idea what's going on.
All right. I'm going to
Be in
put
charge of anything.
Well, I'm going to move you to 5. Perfect. And then I can cruise around. All right. So how many do we have? If we will move 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So we'll put 2 more in each room. And this will give you a chance as you get into the rooms to just Oh, Kathleen. You also are a faculty. We'll put you in. Steve, I don't know if you may know everybody already. It's okay. I'll put you in with Steve, Kathleen, so you can fight about the Habs and the Leafs. All right, so then when I open the rooms, just take 5 minutes and I'll call you back together and see if you can map out your degrees of separation and what role you might be playing in our research right now. All right. You should be able to join. Hi, Kristen.
Hello. Is it snowing where you are? Because it is snowing like crazy in Brampton.
Oh, no. Only
It's like the snowflakes are this thick right now. It's been snowing for an hour.
no, I am sitting watching the steam come off my pool. Just sent a text to my husband and said, there's steam coming off the pool. And he goes, no, that's dollar signs from the gas here. Oh, oh, what a difference.
I planted all my vegetables and I'm hoping they don't all die now. I've already had the rabbits steal a few of them. So I'm at my bare minimum now already. So
Dear. All right. Well, we are back and I hope you had a few minutes to just get to know at least 2 other people who are involved in some way with this group. So you can see now, developed a little bit of relationship where you might find people to sort of create your lab, and in terms of diversity of roles. And now we're going to talk about just a little bit about time and space. So making sure that you create the time to build those relationships, to connect, to build that community in your lab. So finding a way that works for the director of the lab or the lead, and anybody who's constant, right? Find the way that works for that continuing role, because we know a lot of students come and go. It's important that it works for them, but we need some sort of foundation to build that house, correct? So find something that works and then allow the lab to morph, grow, adapt as contributors come and go. So give people a reason to be there and a desire to contribute, and then everybody benefits. Take the time to get to know each other. Consider the diversity of your research lab on many levels. So year of study. Do you have students who are just beginning, some undergraduate contributions, master's level, graduate student levels? Perhaps you look into postdoc, but also discipline of study. So I mentioned that often I go to the psychology department because that's my area of expertise. But within my research projects, I may need other areas of study, and really to take an interdisciplinary approach, particularly in education. Just the nature of our discipline includes multiple disciplines. So again, one of my very established and successful research assistants came from the political science field, and contributed with, you know, the questioning, the argumentative, or not argumentative, but developing an argument, very organized, and set up the lab and brought to it a different approach than some other disciplines might. Different gender, different age, cultures, religions, preferred time to work. So, you know, maybe you have somebody who really can only function best in the morning, but the director functions best very late at night. Make sure that there's somebody that can connect or find a way to connect at different times of day. Something as simple as that. Travel experience, you know, maybe you make sure you have some Habs fans and some Leafs fans, so that there's diversity in what you're cheering for. Bills versus Cowboys, etc. So begin with where you pull the contributors from. So advertise on your website with your area of research. Right? So I've had many students that aren't even from Laurier contact me from my website that is searching for a place to work and study and become part of the lab. Your current projects, right? Make sure that you advertise what it is that you're doing and put any opportunities available there, paid or volunteer, or volunteer. So make sure that you provide opportunities to gather those folks in, and then give them the space to get to know each other. Perhaps some meetings are agenda free. Okay? So it's important that you use the time productively, but sometimes that production is building that relationship. So it's a lunch outside on a bench in nature, and you're just chatting about research and what the lab means, right? Other times, rotate where you have it. So I've used the classrooms are flexible learning spaces, right? If you don't have a lab space, so those of you working with Kim Roberts, you have an established lab space. Those of you who work with me, we don't have a space, we have a virtual lab, and often met in my office. Now we're meeting Teams, Zoom. We'll talk about some of that in a minute. So rotate that space, keep your agenda loose, provide time for that chat and allowing to go off topic, because sometimes your best ideas come at the end of the meeting and off the agenda. A walk and talk always worked for me. Right? Some of my most creative ideas come during a walk and talk. Eden Hennessy and I discussed many ideas, planned articles, built relationships on the sidewalks around the university and in Waterloo Park. Right? So providing a different atmosphere sometimes gets different results. Whoops. So you also want to find your space. So the director can set that up, ensuring the time and the space. But then if you are the RA, if you are a student in that lab, what is it that you bring to the lab? Identify what you're contributing, because what goes around comes around. So you may think, oh, I don't know anything about statistics, and how am I going to contribute to this lab? But maybe the questions you ask about statistics help the growth of those who are very good at it and have the experience, right? So they may offer a lot to you in terms of helping with statistical analysis, but you may the next time say, well, yeah, I've got the slides for this presentation. I'm very creative. I've got a set already done. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? So making sure that you're sharing across roles and responsibilities, right? So I love quotes. Those of you who have worked with me know I like to use some short sentences that really capture the ideas. And also I have a phys ed background. Everything I need to know, I learned in the gym. That's one of my favorites. And also there is no I in team. Right? So it means we're working together. Those of you from the psychology bent will know about the importance of a superordinate goal, bringing people together. In your research lab, I would say that's knowledge mobilization. Or in my lab, we're going to create, the research is important, but what do we do with it, right? So publications, presentations, reports, ensuring that it goes somewhere, does something. Maybe it's teaching somebody else about research, but how do we share that? So where are you headed as a lab and also as individuals? So 3 points, 3 buts. Discuss. So make sure you're discussing what those are, but don't keep score. Right? So you very quickly can destroy the community of a lab by counting how many publications that you're putting out, what you've contributed, and quantifying that can sometimes really destroy and not lead us to the superordinate goal. So discuss those things. It's important that you aren't sitting in the lab going, well, I didn't get to do anything on this project. I need a publication. Discuss it, but don't keep score. Build on past research. So what's happening, but keep current, right? So make sure that you are open to new projects, that you are open to adding to what's already been there or creating something new. Talk about the authorship in terms of contribution, so who did what, but also need. And that can be a difference, right? So there may be other reasons and rationales for authorship. For example, it might be who needs it in terms of promotion or CV building, right? So I'm a full professor now, and Steve officially joined that group today. So congratulations, Dr. Sider. So there's very few people counting my publications anymore, right? And still useful for grants, and certainly you're going to continue that. But what is really important for me now is developing those highly qualified personnel, making sure that others are learning from that. So I may have one of my students take first author on a paper, even if I have conceived the idea and it looks like the contribution might be my paper, Right? So again, discussing that and ensuring that everybody knows ahead of time. And I'm also a big proponent of don't reinvent the wheel. So what are this, I'm just maybe gonna get over here. The rules, sorry. If you can see my cursor, it's flying around all three screens. This credit, oh, it's gonna come up on my other screen. Wow, oh dear.
Julia, we were having this debate last time with Kathleen as to how many screens we should be working from. And I'm not sure if anyone remembers my answer, but I rest my case.
Well, it just, I just have a document recovery. It crashed my, when I tried to go out. And the link is there, so I'm gonna let you go to the document. I'm just looking at the time too. But because what it does is list the multiple roles. And I don't remember exactly who shared this with me. So if you were the person that did, I apologize that I'm not giving you credit. But again, this is an opportunity for you to talk about, to plan. Oh, sorry, this is really irritating. Sorry. And it's recorded.
Well, sometimes I find it helps if you stop sharing and then try again.
It's brilliant. Thank you.
If all
That's-
else fails, shut it down and start over.
Yeah.
It's my go-to problem solving technique.
It's
Are you saying, are you talking about the about meetings generally, Danielle, or are you,
I'm talking
because
about life in general.
I like that
life
strategy.
in general. Yeah.
Just Julie, take your time, and as you're searching through the your screens, I'm going to just put a note up for anyone who's here who didn't get a direct invitation for our lunch and learns. Just let me know, and I'll gladly add you to our listserv for the future ones.
I tell you, this is what happens when you actually practice. I don't know why we're being like this. You know what I can do? When in doubt, shut off one of your screens. There we go with the problem solving, right?
Shut down and restart.
Well, I'm gonna not even, yeah, it seems to have corrupted this. Oh, no.
Julie, what you need is, I understand Danielle has this new project. I heard this directly from a great source by the name of Natalia about the superhero within. I think, I'm not sure if I'm quite saying it accurately there.
Superhero in me.
The superhero in me. That was actually what Natalia said. I just misinterpreted it. But there we are channeling our superheroes in you, Julie, to problem solve on the go here.
Yeah.
I want to know more about that project. I think that's phenomenal. So how do I become an RA on your project, Danielle? That's what I want to know.
Well, you can email me and fill out these forms. Usually forms are involved.
I'm sorry. I think my computer's crashing right now.
Well, and you see, I wouldn't persevere with these slides, except that I gave up my lunch to finish them, so it needs to be worthwhile. I'm going to, there we go. So that link we can send out, and I have sent it out to other folks. So we'll just, I'll leave it that you can, I'll send these slides, right? Oh, there it's in the recording as well, right? So you can go there immediately. Oops, here we go. Everybody having lunch?
I love on Zoom calls or Teams calls when the presenter, I was in Ministry of Education meetings this morning, and the same thing was happening. One of our guests was coming from one of the East Coast universities, was having lots of problems, was talking things through. And, there's 50 people in this presentation, and just kind of talk, okay, now I'm going to try we don't know what you're doing, obviously, Julie, but clearly I just finished 2 slices of pizza. And I am my stomach is just enjoying the opportunity to settle while I see a thumb right now. This is fascinating we can kind of like make up stories. Kathy, we need a storyteller amongst us to help us kind of put Julie on mute, and we'll come up with a story as to what's happening on her screens. Wouldn't that be brilliant?
It's just getting funny now.
Okay, you start, Steve.
Everyone says one word and
Okay. No, the funniest part is yeah, you totally disappeared, and I can't get my PowerPoint to come up at all. So I'm going to continue on without a PowerPoint, and I can see your faces. So the final part I really wanted to talk about was the keeping records. So we've got, making the space and time, and I'll kind of combine the last 2 pieces. So the roles in the research lab, right? Making sure that you have space for everyone. And I really wanted to just talk about, currently I have a social media manager, a website manager, and a lab manager. And Kristen, I would consider the lab manager at present. So Kristen, if you could just say a moment, take a moment and say that this is not usually how Julie works on screen.
It's definitely not.
But making sure that those things are addressed. So the Twitter account, really important that there's somebody who is engaged and keeping that current. I do have a website, and there's a debate between, do you want to make your research space so connected to the university that, like your research lab, there are spaces to make a web page specific for your research lab. At the time that I created mine, the university's platform was not really user-friendly. It was difficult for outside people to use. So I created one using Weebly. The bonus of that is external facing. It was a little more creative. You do have to pay for it, so there's a cost to it. And what I do is have whoever's looking after that, change your password each time you change your RA. So it's external, which can be good, can be bad as well. Having somebody that's more consistent across time. Doctoral students should be around a little bit longer, so that's important to have somebody who carries it over. If you don't, I also had a student who had a full-time lab manager create a lab manual, and back in the day when we were face-to-face, I printed that, so it was a hard, you could just grab it. It had passwords, accounts, has everything in it that you might need instead of searching through files. So I would highly recommend that you have a bit of a lab manual. As the person in the role changed, so when Zoe came on Rifa came on to look after Twitter, she read what was in the lab manual that Yo had left sort of a legacy. So moving forward, all of that history isn't lost, right? So that's important. Our Teach Digital Lab, I can put up, but again, you can look at the link, because I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time here before we move into our AGM. So I won't bother sharing my screen, because you can all look up teachdigitallab.com and see what's on there. Meeting the team is front and center. So again, creating that community, that there's a purpose and a space for everyone, I think is really a foundation to the research that follows. So I'm going to stop. Thank you for enduring the scavenger hunt across my screens. And You made me hungry. Okay. Sorry, I can't multitask. As you can see, I didn't read the chat at the same time. So you have had a chance to chat at the side, but I'd really like you to unmute and share now. Maybe I hope you're not afraid of the recording.
Can I just add a comment or a question, Julie, which
Yeah.
you alluded to, and I just want to get your clarification. You refer to the lab, the Teach Digital Lab, and you've used the term lab multiple times. I think sometimes when we think lab, we think of a biology lab or a physics lab. Can you just, what do you mean? You talk about virtual versus physical. What do you mean by the term lab?
I mean the collection of people that are working together to do the research. So that's why, we don't necessarily need a space, right? But my space is online, right? So that lab is people who are, again, have that superordinate goal. So who's working with me? I mean, I'm the director of the lab. So that changes, as students come and go. But that's what I really mean by the time and space. It doesn't have to be physical space, but a space where everyone connects. We've started using Teams as well. I created a team for my lab. That was on one of the missing slides, but within Teams, so Microsoft Office now, right? Which works as well. And that's a little, it adds that ability to work on collaborative documents. I mean, I used to use Google, depending on who you're working with as well. We used Google Documents. I had a Dropbox that I used, but of course, your data can't be in that space. So the Teams and OneDrive is working really well as well. A little bit difficult sometimes with external folks trying to get in if they have a Teams account with their organization, but we've figured it out as well.
Thank you. And I put this comment in the chat area just about your idea of a lab manual, and I think that's brilliant. I've never thought about that or done that. So Laura, I've got a little communication happening there already, which is great to make use of some people's knowledge, such as Laura, to help me with developing something like that for my group. Thank you for that idea.
I would highly recommend it because it's great to have everything digital, and sometimes we're thinking, why would we print that off? But it's really handy to have available. Yeah, so this is my research site, right? So the lab, and then we can have research projects, and this is kind of more of the knowledge mobilization, right? It's in the lab manual. There's also a spreadsheet of the project you're working on, and I was going to pull that too, but I can.
Is this all? It's not all public though.
This is public. This site. So that's what I mean. This is more of the results of your research for people to see what you're working on, right? So there's some of our collaborators. So it gives them a voice and a space, right? And the knowledge mobilization. The lab manual is not public. So I have it, it's posted on Teams now. I had it in Dropbox. So that's, a good way to separate. Yes, it's sort of the working document and the spreadsheets, right? Probably a lot of what's in that manual you have in other places, but just pulling it together makes it an easy orientation for onboarding as well.
Julie, I'm just noticing the time. I'm going to slide out. Kathleen's just put a great question in the chat there. I think the answer is 1, but that's what I would say. I think really a lab is you and anyone else, and maybe sometimes it's just you. So I'm going to leave, but Julie, I just want to say thank you and let you carry on. I just need to get to prepare for the next one. So thanks
Yeah,
everyone.
you go ahead, Stephen. I'll wrap up very shortly here as well and join you. I know Danielle, you're heading over there too. So anything else? I hope you take, I always try to take one thing from every event or talk or hour I've spent. So hopefully it might be that you met somebody you haven't met before. It might be you're going to create a lab manual. It might be you're going to look into Weebly as a website. Hopefully you can take something. Anybody else feel the need to talk?
I just want to say thank you, Julie. I think this was really helpful. And I have my own lab, as you know, but I really like the idea of having that lab manual and the switching of passwords when RAs graduate. I didn't even think about doing that. Like those are really helpful takeaways. Yeah, thank you.
That's useful in the lab manual that you can have
Like keep track of all of that.
your computer science student when you have them. Hey, they can set it up so it does it automatically, timed and all.
Yeah, I
I've not
definitely
done
need
that,
that.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to physical space.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to see all of you. All right. Well, I'm going to just sit here for a minute or two, but I'm now the host. So when I go off, it will shut. So feel free to, I know it's difficult to decide when you actually click the leave button. Feels a bit. So feel free. It is now complete, but if you want to say anything more, go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Julie. I'll see you in a few minutes in the
Yeah,
next one.
thanks, Danielle.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Kathy.
Are you going to send this out so I can see the beginning, right?
Yeah, it's, oh, I should stop the recording now. Yeah, I